As our constant companion, the moon is easy to take for granted, especially as much information about the satellite comes from controlled sources. However, there are many shocking facts and discoveries about the moon that will make you question everything you know about this Earth's companion. In this video, we bring you shocking facts that prove the moon is not exactly what you think. Number 1. Mysterious lights flashing on the moon. Proof of aliens. The debate on the presence of aliens in the universe continues to be hot and divisive even among scientists. And there is clear evidence that the authorities try to make you believe their own version of the truth about aliens in the universe. However, you may not need to go deep into space to find evidence of aliens thanks to the recent discovery of mysterious lights that flash off and on the moon. The caveat is the official line is that scientists do not know why this is happening, but it's easy to put two and two together. Parts of the surface light up several times per week, sometimes in quick bursts, sometimes for hours. At times, part of the surface goes mysteriously dark. They're referred to as transient lunar phenomena by scientists. One paper from 1970 stated that the emitted light is usually described as reddish or pinkish, sometimes with a sparkling or flowing appearance, and that it could stretch for miles across the surface and last for 20 minutes but could last for hours. They've proposed various explanations, such as the moon being hit by meteors or the solar wind colliding with moon dust or the moon's surface moving, releasing gases that reflect sunlight back at Earth. However, no conclusive explanation for the behavior has been provided. They are now hoping to figure out what is causing these strange flashes on the surface. Guess it's so hard to admit the light might be coming from aliens after many decades of maintaining that they don't exist. Number 2. Mysterious bluish glow on Aristarchus crater on the moon. Not everything about the moon can be explained, but scientists continue to try. One of the most mysterious observations that have tormented researchers for centuries is the bluish glow found on Aristarchus crater on the moon. The Aristarchus crater is located on the moon's Earth-facing side in the far northwestern corner. This region, which includes an impact feature deeper than the Grand Canyon, has long been a target of astronomers due to its high albedo, that is, the amount of light it reflects, which is nearly double the brightness of other features visible on the moon. Captain W. Smythe published a letter in the monthly notices of the Royal Astronomical Society in 1836 in which he described seeing a light resembling that of a star of the 9th or 10th magnitude, which appeared by glimpses but at times was brilliant and visible for several seconds together. Sightings of anomalous luminosity around or from within the Aristarchus crater have also been reported in recent years. In an account detailed by Ron Emanuel in the November 1965 issue of Understanding, the author noted observations of a single bright point of light resembling a star that appeared to emanate from the crater's center. So what are the suggested explanations for this glow? When an impact occurs on the moon, crater peaks form as the lunar crust rebounds from the immense pressures produced by such events. The energies of impacts are so high that rocks no longer behave as brittle solids but rather as deformable plastic. The moon's crust's almost fluid-like behavior causes the bottom of the crater to rebound, driving up material from deep beneath the surface and forming the central peak found in many lunar craters. According to NASA, in the case of Aristarchus crater, the central peak contains rocks with 3 very different albedos. These materials slide down slope as they erode from the central peak, creating contrasting stripes. The highest albedo material reflects about 4 times as much light as the lowest albedo rocks. This could account for the appearance of the bluish glow within the Aristarchus crater. Number 3. Mysterious towers discovered on the moon. If you were to stumble upon a house in a deserted desert, you would conclude at least somebody was at that spot before you and constructed the structure. But what if it's not one, but a group of towers that you stumble upon on the moon? Proof of aliens right there, right? Well, you don't even have to imagine this second scenario, as 6 towers on the moon have been discovered, boosting the theories of alien experts that some terrestrial beings have been occupying the moon. Interestingly, this footage comes from Google Moon, which is collected by NASA satellites orbiting the moon and taking images of the lunar surface. It clearly shows structures standing high above ground level. Some of the towers are 5 kilometers tall, according to the data accompanying these images. Tyler Glockner, the founder of the alien hunting website Secure Team 10, believes the rock formations are not natural and were placed there by some kind of life form. He says that when you look at these things, they are towering, some of them at nearly 4 miles high, and you may say to yourself, well, Tyler, these are probably just glitches, image glitches on the software. To which I say, okay, that's a valid possibility. But when it comes to the idea of towers on the moon, and by towers I'm talking artificial towers, as in they're not natural to the moon, they've been put there by someone or something, the idea of towers on the moon has been around for decades. Number 4. Mysterious objects flying close to the moon. Sometimes the moon puts up a show by transforming itself into a mesmerizing object in the sky. And thanks to science, the timing of events like this can be fairly predicted, allowing people to track and watch in excitement. However, when this type of show is on, some people pay more attention to the details, allowing them to spot shocking objects that might have completely flown under the radar. This was exactly what happened when we recently had the biggest and brightest supermoon of the year. Someone looked even closer and noticed a very strange sight. They saw strange orbs which they captured on video flying dangerously close to the moon, casting convincing shadows on the rocky lunar surface. The video was uploaded to the Jean-Michel Tenac YouTube channel and is the only video on that channel. It has gathered millions of views as users try to figure out what they're seeing. A timestamp on the video indicates how the events occurred. The video was shot toward Montreal in the late afternoon, according to the caption. It is unclear what type of camera equipment was used for the filming. The video zooms in at one point and replays the strange objects in slow motion for clarity. While there is no official explanation for this video, could this be another in the long list of clues that aliens are jetting around our corner of the solar system? Number 5. Chinese rover spots weird large cube just sitting on the moon. The space race is no longer between just the US and Russia. China is also a player in the game and has been reporting intriguing findings that baffle everyone. One such finding is a mysterious large cube Chinese rovers spotted on the moon. China's Yutu-2 rover captured images of the mystery structure from around 260 feet away while navigating across the von Karman crater in the South Pole Aitken Basin on the moon. It was intriguing enough that Chinese scientists rerouted the rover to get a better look. However, the answers may not come so soon, as Yutu-2 will take several months to reach the strange lunar object. According to a Yutu-2 diary, the shape was spotted on the horizon during the mission's 36th lunar day. Since Yutu-2 discovered the mysterious cubic hut, scientists have altered the course of the 6-wheeled vehicle to investigate the cube. The solar-powered rover will traverse the lunar landscape for 2 to 3 lunar days, which is equivalent of 2 to 3 months on Earth, to get a better look. As expected, the images from the rover immediately sparked speculation about what the cube-shaped object was and inspired amusing guesses. Is it a home built by aliens following a crash landing, or is it the first spacecraft to explore the moon? And this isn't the first strange find made by the Yutu-2 rover since it arrived on the far side of the moon almost 3 years ago. The rover came across a strange gel-like substance. Yutu-2 also discovered unusual shards protruding from the lunar surface. Number 6. Does the moon have a hollow core? Is there evidence to suggest that our moon is hollow? That glowing ball in the night sky has been visible to us our entire lives. There have been some wild theories over the centuries, but given our level of advancement today, nothing could be more bizarre than what you're about to see. The hollow moon concept has been around for centuries and it's appeared in several works of fiction. However, one compelling piece of alleged evidence frequently cited is the Apollo mission's experiments from the late 1960s. Following the installation of seismic sensors on the moon, a spent liftoff stage of the lunar module was sent crashing down to the moon's surface, causing massive reverberations akin to a bell ringing. The moon would ring or reverberate for several hours each time the experiment was repeated on subsequent missions using a spent rocket stage. This is not the same reaction that the Earth would have to such an impact. Many people believe that the moon must have a hollow interior. What else could be causing the tremors? So if the moon is hollow, what's inside? A hollow moon appears to be the ideal location for an alien base. Furthermore, one side of the moon is always facing away from the Earth, so who knows what is going on behind closed doors. Number 7. The moon is shrinking. When we look up at the moon, it does not appear to be shrinking. Its size appears to be relatively constant to our eyes. However, contrary to popular belief, the moon is actually shrinking. In fact, NASA estimates that the moon has shrunk by about 150 feet. So what is the cause of the moon's shrinkage and what effects does it have? The moon is shrinking over time due to the loss of internal heat. The moon retained a large amount of heat when it formed over 4 billion years ago, but due to its small size, that heat eventually escaped into space. Heat causes objects to expand, and when objects release that heat into their surroundings, they shrink. This is what's going on with the moon. The moon's heat dissipates over time, causing it to shrink. The more heat contained in the moon, the faster it shrinks, and thus the rate of shrinkage slows with time. This discovery actually alters our perception of Earth's nearest neighbor. The moon is commonly regarded as an immobile, barren world, but it is in fact an active world. The moon is a dynamic environment, and humans should return there as soon as possible to further our understanding of this strange world. Number 8. The moon has quakes too, known as moonquakes. The moon is still tectonically active and is shriveled like a raisin as its interior has cooled, as mentioned already. However, a team of researchers from the University of Maryland has identified thousands of cliffs on the moon's surface known as thrust faults. According to the findings, the moon is experiencing moonquakes along these faults. Researchers used data from seismic sensors left on the moon by NASA's Apollo missions in the 1960s and 70s to pinpoint the epicenters of 28 moonquakes recorded between 1969 and 1977. Asteroid impacts or rumblings deep within the moon's interior could cause moonquakes, but the researchers discovered that at least 8 of the moonquakes were most likely caused by tectonic plates moving along thrust faults or fault scarps. This was discovered by superimposing the quake epicenters onto photos of thrust faults taken much more recently by satellites. The team's analysis provides the first evidence that these faults are still active and likely producing moonquakes today as the moon gradually cools and shrinks. And some of these quakes can be quite powerful, measuring around 5 on the Richter scale. There is a data gap, but the researchers believe the moon is still experiencing quakes. They discovered that a number of the quakes recorded in the Apollo data occurred very close to the faults seen in the LRO imagery. The LRO imagery also shows physical evidence of geologically recent fault movements, such as landslides and tumbled boulders. So the faults are almost certainly still active today. Number 9. The moon is drifting away from the Earth. There may come a day when the moon escapes the pull of the Earth and ceases to be our satellite. While everything may look fine when you look at the moon on a clear night, the fact is that this object is drifting away from us. The simulations by researchers led them to conclude that the moon was much closer to the Earth at the time of its formation, sitting only 22,500 kilometers or 14,000 miles away, compared to the 250,000-mile or 402,336 kilometers distance between the Earth and Moon today. Without the Moon, the Earth could slow down to the point of becoming unstable. But why is the Moon trying to escape? The Moon's movement away from Earth is primarily caused by the action of the Earth's tides. The thing is, the Earth's gravitational force keeps the Moon in orbit, but the Moon also exerts a gravitational force on our planet, causing the movement of the Earth's oceans to form a tidal bulge. This tidal bulge actually sits slightly ahead of the Moon due to the rotation of the Earth. Friction transfers some of the spinning Earth's energy to the tidal bulge. This propels the bulge forward, allowing it to stay ahead of the Moon. The tidal bulge injects a small amount of energy into the Moon, propelling it into a higher orbit similar to the faster outside lanes on a racetrack. However, the energy gained by pushing the Moon higher is offset by a decrease in the energy of its motion, so an acceleration provided by the Earth's tides actually slows the Moon down. This difference over a long enough period of time could have an impact on Earth's life, slowing it down. Days were 5 hours long on early Earth when the moon was newly formed, but with the moon's braking effect operating on the Earth for the last 4.5 billion years, days have slowed to the 24 hours that we are familiar with now, and they will continue to slow. Number 10. Where did the moon come from? Have you ever been asked by a child where the moon came from? Well, that could be a tough question to answer even with a degree in astronomy. There are different theories about the origin of the moon. For example, according to the capture theory, the moon was a wandering body that formed elsewhere in the solar system and was captured by Earth's gravity as it passed close by. In contrast, the accretion theory proposes that the moon formed alongside the Earth during its formation, whereas the fission scenario states that Earth was spinning so fast that some material broke away and began to orbit the planet. However, what is most widely accepted today is the giant impact theory. It suggests that the moon formed as a result of a collision between the Earth and another small planet the size of Mars. The debris from this impact accumulated in orbit around Earth, eventually forming the moon. When the Apollo rocks were returned after the mission, they revealed that the Earth and the moon have some remarkable chemical and isotopic similarities, implying that they have a shared history. If the moon was created elsewhere and then captured by the Earth's gravity, its composition would be very different from the Earth's. And if the moon and Earth were created at the same time or separated, we would expect the type and proportion of minerals on the moon to be the same. They are, however, slightly different. Number 11. There is water on the moon. What if you were to get thirsty while on the moon? While the possibility is unlikely to happen to most viewers of this video, it's still comforting to know there is water on the moon. For centuries, astronomers have debated whether water exists on Earth's nearest neighbor. However, recent data from NASA's SOFIA mission has confirmed water exists in the sunlit area of the lunar surface as molecules of H2O embedded within or possibly adhering to grains of lunar dust. The Apollo era brought humans to the lunar surface for the first time, allowing researchers to search directly for signs of water on the moon. Soil samples returned by Apollo astronauts were tested and found to be waterless. Scientists came to the conclusion that the lunar surface must be completely dry, and the possibility of water was not seriously considered again for decades. However, NASA's Clementine mission in 1994 launched with the goal of orbiting the moon for 2 months and collecting data on its minerals. The data indicated the presence of ice in a permanently shadowed region of the moon. To delve deeper into the discovery, the Lunar Prospector mission focused on permanently shadowed craters and discovered in 1998 that the highest concentrations of hydrogen exist in areas of the lunar surface that are never exposed to sunlight. The findings indicated the presence of water ice at the lunar poles. However, because the images were low resolution, no firm conclusions could be drawn. Fast forward to 2020, when NASA announced the discovery of water on the moon's sunlit surface. Water exists in Clavius crater in concentrations roughly equivalent to a 12-ounce bottle of water within a cubic meter of soil across the lunar surface, according to data from the Strategic Observatory for Infrared Astronomy, or SOFIA. Number 12. There is a large metallic object hiding under the South Polar Aitken Basin, or SPAR. One of the moon's most fascinating features is the South Polar Aitken Impact Basin. However, it is hidden from our view because it's on the far side of the satellite. It gets its name from its 2,400-kilometer, 1,500-mile diameter that stretches from the North Rim's crater Aitken to the lunar South Pole. It is massive, second only to Mars's Hellas Basin in the solar system. China's Chang'e 4 lander landed on a particularly deep spot near the basin's center earlier this year. Geologists have long suspected that the oval-shaped spar was formed by the slow, oblique collision of a 200-kilometer-wide object that did not penetrate the moon very deeply. An analysis of gravity and topography data has now revealed a massive mass buried beneath the basin. A team led by Peter B. James of Baylor University combined topographic maps of the basin with the best available data from NASA's Gravity Recovery and Interior Laboratory, or GRAIL mission, to make the discovery, which was published in Geophysical Research Letters. The team believes the impactor's iron-rich core dispersed in the moon's upper mantle, leaving behind a concentrated blob roughly 5 times the size of Hawaii's Big Island. Number 13. A full moon can keep you awake. For millennia, people have speculated about the moon's impact on human health and behavior. For instance, Pliny the Elder, an ancient Roman philosopher, claimed the moon could penetrate all things and speculated on its effects on tides, marine life, plants, animals, and human activity. While science has since explained some lunar phenomena such as tides and eclipses, much remains a mystery. The moon's ability to influence nighttime behavior is perhaps the most common lunar legend. There are numerous stories about nocturnal mayhem, sleep disturbances, and insomnia caused by the moon's unfathomable power. But is there any truth to the folklore? Well, the relationship between moon phases and sleep has been illuminated by modern research methods. According to a study from the University of Basel in Switzerland, subjects monitored closest to a full moon experienced less deep sleep, produced less melatonin, and took 5 minutes longer to fall asleep than those monitored at other times of the month. The full moon, according to sleep researcher Marie Dumont, could indirectly affect the internal body clock by increasing volunteers' exposure to light in the evening. So next time you are struggling to sleep, look out the window to see if there's a full moon. Number 14. Shadows are darker on the moon than on Earth. Shadows will follow you everywhere, including the moon. However, your shadow will appear different on the moon because it will be darker. But why is this so? On Earth, air scatters light, allowing objects that are not in direct sunlight to be well lit. This effect is known as Rayleigh scattering, named after the British Nobel laureate physicist Lord Rayleigh. Rayleigh scattering is what makes the sky blue and, for the most part, allows you to read a magazine under an umbrella at the beach. However, there is no air on the moon, so there is no Rayleigh scattering. As a result, shadows are very dark, and where sunlight does strike, it is very bright. Shadowed areas are dramatically murky, but there is still some light bouncing around in there thanks to reflected light from the lunar surface. The regolith on the moon is made up of fine, angular particles of highly reflective dust. It tends to reflect light back at the source while also illuminating objects in shadows, as seen in Apollo mission photographs. This is why astronauts were still visible within the shadow of the landing modules, and their suits were well illuminated by reflected light from the lunar surface. Some have used this as proof that the landings were shot on a soundstage with artificial lighting, but it's all due to reflected light. So even though there isn't much air scattering the sunlight on the moon, there is enough reflection to sneak light into the shadows, but not much. Number 15. The coldest spot in the solar system is measured on the moon. Most people assume the coldest spot in the solar system would be on Pluto. However, the coldest location in the solar system may be closer to home. According to data from NASA's LRO, permanently shadowed craters at the moon's south pole may be colder than Pluto and other objects in the solar system's farthest reaches. LRO's Diviner Lunar Radiometer experiment, which conducted the first global survey of the temperature of the lunar surface, discovered that craters along the lunar south pole that have areas permanently shielded from the sun's light have extremely cold temperatures. Diviner measured minimum daytime brightness temperatures of less than minus 397 degrees Fahrenheit in portions of these craters. These super-cold brightness temperatures were among the lowest ever measured anywhere in the solar system, including Pluto's surface. And yet, while it may appear strange that the moon, which is much closer to the sun, could be colder than Pluto, it is not at all surprising. The key point is not the distance from the sun, but the fact that there are regions at the poles of the moon that never see the sun, and thus never get heated by sunlight.